All right, we're back. It's another Carolina podcast. I'm your host, Pearson Fowler. With me, as always, from GamecockCentral.com, Wes Mitchell, Chris Clark. Live streaming this bad boy on YouTube. Hopefully you can hear us. Hopefully you're watching us. Is this going to be available to watch after we record it as well, or only live?
Assuming that you can hear us well, I'm going to republish the video to be watched. So we're doing this a little different this time, I guess. If you're watching on YouTube,
hello.
You can send in your questions via chat.
Oh.
Or you can send in your questions via the Insider Forum on Gamecock Central,
where we actually have a mailbag thread up. We just have our
because I
ish together this week. Yeah, because Wes actually
good job, guys.
Thank you for doing that. We're high tech. We're living in the future, doing a whole bunch of stuff, a little bit different, but the content's still the same. Still South Carolina football. We're a week away from spring, exactly a week away from spring. This time next week, we'll be talking way more specifically about spring practice as Carolina will have gotten underway. And not a moment too soon, Carolina knows who their coaches are going to be for the 2020 season. No better time than just a week before spring practice to get that thing figured out, right, guys?
So, really, I guess, Wes, this was sorted out on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, they're to that time period now where the coaches can actually meet with the players some. They're still doing winter workouts. Spring practice is on February 26th, as you alluded to, Pearson. And so, yeah, with some of the coaching moves, there was a few days of a time period where Will Muschamp interviewed some outside candidates. The Tracy Rocker thing obviously moved quite quickly, which made sense. There's a pre-existing relationship there. Tracy Rocker is someone that Will Muschamp had tried to hire before, actually on his first staff at South Carolina in 2015. Timing didn't work out, and it did this time. And then you had the situation where, you know, interviewed some outside running backs coaches. There was a time period where they were waiting to see if Brian McClendon was going to get an opportunity to go to the Steelers. That did not end up happening, and so Muschamp had to make a decision as to how he wanted to proceed. And so on Friday, we published our story about the coaching moves, and that was, you know, in addition to Tracy Rocker, that Brian McClendon would stay, coach wide receivers, Bobby Bentley would coach running backs, and then Muschamp was going to hire Rod Wilson, former Gamecock, to the linebacker coach position, and will also assist with special teams per our understanding.
And Brian McClendon did not get the Steelers job. Ike Hilliard is going to be the wide receiver coach for the Steelers. Brian McClendon staying on staff as the wide receiver coach for South Carolina, which means Joe Cox staying at tight ends. And then, as you mentioned, Bobby Bentley moving back to the running back coach position. So how much of an impact is it actually going to make? Because you mentioned this is just about the time that the coaches can start to talk to the players. You still have a week before spring practice. And obviously there is the consideration of these new coaches have to come in and learn everything that they're supposed to learn about what they're going to be doing here at South Carolina so that they can impart that wisdom and knowledge to the players in just a week's time. Is it actually as big a deal as I feel like it is in my head that like half of the coaching staff is coming in with like less than a month to prepare for spring?
You know, I don't think so in this case. A couple reasons for it. Number one, you know, so Brian McClendon's staying at the same position, right, and at receivers where he's been since 2016. Bobby Bentley has coached running backs. So now there are going to be some schematic differences with what Mike Bobo brings to the table as opposed to what it was under Brian McClendon, under Kurt Roper. There are going to be some different things there. But Brian McClendon has coached in that scheme, so he's familiar with what Mike Bobo does. He was the running backs coach, but he played receiver. He understands schematically what you're going to be bringing. Joe Cox is a new coach to this staff, but he's been on staff for a little bit now. He wasn't one of these late hires, and he also has worked with Mike Bobo as a position coach for, 3 seasons, I guess it was, 4 seasons. So there's a high level of familiarity there. Tracy Rocker's familiar with what Muschamp does schematically. I mean, he's coached in some similar systems. They haven't worked together directly, but he's a veteran coach, NFL. He's been 5 SEC programs, now is 6. So he'll have an understanding. So I guess really the one that they'll have to get up to speed from a schematic standpoint is Rod Wilson, you know, because he hasn't coached with Muschamp yet. He's been focused more coaching on special teams in the NFL, but he does have college experience at linebackers, and he's an extremely bright coach who played in college, coached in college, he's played in the NFL, and now he's coached for a really good organization with Kansas City Chiefs. And my understanding is he was extremely impressive during the interview process, and so I think he'll be able to pick it up pretty quickly. and be in place. So I don't know that it's a huge, if I'm being honest, huge issue as far as that. I think the bigger issue is just, can the staff squeeze out production out of this team? Because this is obviously a huge year, and spring ball is going to be a big part of that development.
Yeah, we can get into a little more spring preview later, and then obviously as spring progresses, just a couple quick things on Rod Wilson, who has, obviously people will remember him, most people listening to this remember him playing at South Carolina, played a couple years in the NFL, had some injuries, he was on rosters. He played for the Bears, he played for the Bucks, played for the Jags. I think it was just on the practice squad there, it looks like, and then played 1 year for the Bears, and then had kind of an interesting coaching career where he's still a young coach. He's not even 40 yet. Started coaching inside linebackers at Charleston Southern, and then his next job is in the NFL, and it's, granted it's an assistant special teams coach, but I feel like that's a little bit of an interesting leap. But now, South Carolina can boast having a Super Bowl winning coach on its staff because he was obviously the assistant special teams coach for the Chiefs this past season and has a Super Bowl ring on his finger right now.
Yeah, and I love this hire, honestly, because to me it checks a bunch of boxes. You're talking about a guy that, like we talked about, is a South Carolina grad, is a Palmetto State native. He's from across South Carolina. He's coached in the state at Charleston Southern. And, I know it's like the popular thing for fans to want to – they want to hire an entire staff, like Steve Tannehill coaching quarterbacks, Marcus Lattimore coaching running backs, Sidney Rice coaching receiver, like –
Connor Shaw quarterback.
Yeah.
Now, the quarterbacks, ooh.
Yeah, now you'd have a battle.
Controversy.
Stephen Garcia, obviously.
But point being, to that point, it's not a bad thing to have guys in the room that played at the school, that care a little bit more about the school than it just sort of being, what their job is to care about it, that they have a connection to it. He's from, a small town in the state of South Carolina.
Yeah, if I asked you to locate Cross on a map, could you do it? Because I have no idea where that is.
I've been there before,
have
too,
you?
The school. Yeah, head coach Sean Wright, good guy.
The average person probably could not.
I don't even know what part of the state it's in.
It's in Berkeley County.
Okay.
Yeah. But so you have a guy who can say, look, I'm from small town South Carolina, and can walk into a home and be like, most of the small towns in South Carolina probably look a good bit like Cross, South Carolina. He can say, look, I played in the SEC, I played in the NFL, and oh, by the way, I have this Super Bowl ring that I'm wearing as well. Plus, dude, when you get unsolicited texts from people just wanting to brag about someone as a person, like I got 2 different texts when the news started getting out late last week about this hire and just how this guy is one of the best human beings that the 2 people who texted me have ever been around, and how he's going to be a down-to-earth sort of a lead by example that is going to sort of not really have the ego that some coaches have, but is going to be sort of demanding but also connect with kids and connect with parents. I think it makes so much sense in a lot of ways. I thought, that he had a decent shot at getting on staff when Muschamp made his initial round of hires, and I believe was Mike Peterson the final hire previously.
Yep.
So yeah, he went with Mike P there, but
and a guy with a similar background. He had spent a lot of time in the NFL with the Falcons.
Yeah, so you
so
see,
he kind of got like that mold.
Yeah, and I think it's a situation where the initial interview probably put Rod Wilson on Muschamp's radar for a future opening, and now you see it work out where he's going to be on staff, and I would assume we'd probably get an official announcement later this week, and then sort of go from there.
So here's the rub, the tough part in unpacking all of this. Rod Wilson seems like a good hire, young, up and coming guy. People have a lot of good things to say about him. Has good experience. Everything that you mentioned from where he played to where he coached, all good. You look at Tracy Rocker, great guy, revered developer, has been all around the SEC, has a lot of relationships. That's a good hire. Mike Bobo, great hire. 20 years experience as an OC. He's got a little bit of head coaching experience now. He's done it in the SEC. He's played in the SEC. He has those relationships. All of that is good. You could make an argument that pretty much every hire that South Carolina made as sort of a replacement this offseason, with the exception of, I guess, the running back coach. That's the one where it seems like it's pretty fair to characterize that as a downgrade, going from Thomas Brown back to Bobby Bentley. Everything else is at least a lateral move. And Jay and Tommy and I had some fun with a poll question on our local show yesterday. Basically, with the recruiting class and with the coaching staff moves, how do you feel about the season? And most people were like generally optimistic. There's like great, bad, and then like two medium options, like a positive medium option and a negative medium option. Most people went the positive medium option because, again, all these on paper are great hires. But number one, and we've talked about this on this podcast before, you're still dealing with a lot of turnover, which is still hard. And leads sort of into the but two, which is how much are these guys going to be able to put their individual fingerprints on this program? Because for some of them, they're getting in late. You have a week before spring, and like you said, there's a lot of fundamentals that happen in spring, so it's not so much how much can these guys pick up the scheme, but this staff has a year. Like if Carolina goes 5-7 this year, that's it for everybody. So there's not like a huge amount of time where Mike Bobo can say, all right, we're going to slowly transition into exactly what I want to do. He's got to take what's already in place and add, his tweaks and his flavor to it. Same with Rod Wilson, same with Tracy Rocker. All these guys have to sort of do what they do well, but inside the pre-existing infrastructure. There's not a lot of room for them to totally overhaul anything. So it's obviously better to get good hires than not as good hires, but how much of a difference does that actually make? How different is this team going to look with all these new? Yeah,
I mean that's sort of the multi-million-dollar question of how much can they squeeze out, and so look, I take those coaches and also take Paul Jackson into that equation, and then I take into account what's on the roster because players matter, man. That's been proven year after year after year. You need a really good balance of players to win. You need great players. You need coaches who are developing them, putting them in the best optimal positions to win, and then you've got to stay healthy, right? Go back and look at the teams that have won conference titles, national titles. For South Carolina, that's not even – that's a goal, obviously, but this year, it's not like you have to get there this year. You just need to go through and have a good season and try to build on that, try to get back to that sort of baseline of winning. You need all those things. They all have to be sort of in that ingredient. So this is a team that has a lot of questions, but I think the thing is, like you said, if you're losing coaches, are you upgrading or are you staying about the same? And I think whether you look at this recruiting class or whether you look at, the coaching staff, I think given the season and then some of the off-season turmoil, they did about as well as you could hope for, really. And some of that was, having a guy like Tracy Rocker who was looking for a change and had a pre-existing relationship, that's good fortune. Having a young and up-and-coming coach like Rod Wilson who wants on staff, also good fortune. But I do think some of these coaches in certain situations, Mike Bobo's experience, I think, is going to be huge. His track record of quarterback development. Hopefully that's going to help, whether it's a Ryan Helinski or it's a Colin Hill, bringing along Luke Doty. But look, I just think it goes even beyond the staff. Obviously they're going to be key in developing the quarterback and putting the offense together. And, Brian McClendon at receivers coach, focusing only on receivers, it's going to be huge for him this season to develop Josh Vann, Xavier Legette, have Shi Smith take that next step. Can he develop DeCarrion Joyner from quarterback into receiver? Just so many questions about it, and I think that's where they will prove their worth, I think. And so it's hard to answer, I don't think we have to say if Carolina doesn't win 10 or 11 games this year, which nobody would project, I don't think at this point, we have to say, well, the staff was a failure. But they got to get back to that baseline.
Well, and especially because we don't know how much of an ability they're going to have to make an impact and to change things and to do them exactly like they wanted to. I guess it was, I don't remember if I heard this anecdotally from somebody or if this was in Josh Kendall's Steve Spurrier piece a couple weeks ago, but basically talking about bringing in a guy like John Hoke and then not letting him do what he wanted to do or what he felt like he needed to do. And it's funny because so much fan ire was directed towards John Hoke, and he's like still the butt of jokes, all these years later for how terrible his defense is. And then you find out, oh well, part of the reason it was like that is because he wasn't allowed to do what he wanted to do, and part of that is because he didn't know how much time he was going to have. And so it's just okay, what can I do? What can I bring? Like I said earlier, to this existing infrastructure. So we're never probably really going to know.
Yeah, and I think here's the thing: if a portion of the fan base is like at this point of I don't want to hear any more they would say excuses. I don't want to hear any more rationalization about why things are the way they are. I don't care that most of the staff or a good portion of the staff is new. I don't care that it's a new offensive scheme. They're at this point of, I just want results.
Mm-hmm.
And 4 wins is not enough.
Sure.
Now, the reality of the situation at this point, whether anybody wants to hear it or not, is that when you change an offensive coordinator or change an offensive scheme, sometimes it's really, really difficult to see huge improvements year one, especially early in year one. So I think the thing that Ray Tanner will have to do is, again, sort of block out a lot of the noise. I don't know if there is a specific number that you say South Carolina has to hit this win total. I think it's about seeing progress within the program and seeing that the program has started the upward trend again, which we all thought it was at year 1 and 2, as opposed to what we saw last year. And I think you look at that from Ray Tanner's perspective. If you're going to say, okay, we're going to allow Coach Muschamp to start over as far as coordinator goes, as opposed to just being an AD like some of these other SEC schools that have just said we're going to start over completely, at that point, you actually have to give the new staff the time to make that impact you're talking about. Mm-hmm. So you kind of have two different forces pushing on everything. One force being the portion of the fan base that you're talking about, saying, I need X number of wins or I'm done, versus the reality of, hey, if you're going to change coordinators and change these different positions, then you have to sort of give them a chance to make their impact, or else there was no point in doing it.
But doesn't it feel, even still, I don't think you're wrong in terms of the correct way to think about it, but doesn't it still feel like the former to you more than the latter? I mean, do you really get the sense that this coaching staff, this newly assembled coaching staff, is going to have a couple years to work out all of its kinks?
Well, I was going to jump in, but I don't want to interrupt you.
My point being, I think it depends on how we're judging that. Are we just judging it by wins and losses? Are we at that point, or are we judging it by, let's say South Carolina wins 6 games?
Well, right, yeah. So I was going to say, I'll put it to you like that: if Carolina goes 4-8, no one stays.
Right.
If Carolina goes 5-7,
there's a certain baseline
no
you
one
got to
stays,
get
right?
to.
Yeah,
so baseline is 6-6.
Let's say South Carolina goes 6-6, but they start the year
the most difficult possible.
No, they start the year horrifically, but then as the year goes on, the offense settles in, young players step up, and they finish the year on a positive note. To me, that's a different outcome than South Carolina's up and down all year, plays bad but wins some games they shouldn't, loses some games they shouldn't, and just ekes their way to 6 wins. To me, it's not just a number. Everybody wants a number. I get that, and I think a lot of people, and I'm not even saying I disagree. A lot of people are saying, hey, I've put my money into this, and I'm at the point where I need to see results, and I don't care who the new coaches are and all this stuff, because there's a certain amount of frustration that drives that. I get it completely, but then I think from a realistic standpoint, if you're going to bring in a new offensive coordinator, you have to at least be realistic about what the results are going to be.
I feel like anything sub 500 will be it. I think that's how people are thinking about it.
That's what it seems like.
Wins. Even 6-7. Even if Carolina goes to a bowl and loses, I feel like that will be it. They need to be 7-6 or better.
See, that would be really interesting. The bowl, the 6-6, and then a bowl loss, and I don't know. I mean, that's when it's going to become really difficult. There's a certain point in which, like, I'll say this: there's an appetite in the administration, and I'm not saying you've got to agree with this. If you're listening, some people might say, "Well, that's not true." Yes, it is true. What I'm going to say is true. There's an appetite in the administration to stick with Muschamp. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's despite everything. I know last year it got really bad with Ray. The Ray Tanner, and that stuff was real.
I was going to say, you better be careful bringing up Caslen, because someone's going to have your head on a platter.
Wait, no. I mean, no, it got bad with just everything. I mean, the on-field product, there was support, there was infighting. there was support, there's lack of support for whether it was Tanner, Muschamp, whatever. Eventually that all settled into this, and that is, everybody wants to win, but there's also an appetite to stay with a guy, meaning I don't think
You don't think they're looking to move?
No, they're not looking to make. They're not going, God, how can we fire this guy? No, and Ray Tanner and Muschamp are very much attached at this point. So there's an appetite to stick with the guy. That said, they do have to get to sort of that baseline that we've talked about. They're not going to be able to win 3 or 4 games and stay. It's untenable.
Your point about Tanner and Muschamp being connected is interesting because I feel like if it gets to that point, if it is 6-7, or it can't be 6-6, Carolina will go bowling. But you see what I'm saying? If it's like one of those marginal kinds of seasons, and the fan base is going to want somebody's head. And for Ray Tanner, the only way to save his job might be to move on from Will Muschamp. Now, there are people that say, and this may be more correct, and y'all have more insight into this than I do, that whenever Will Muschamp leaves, that will be the end for Tanner, because that's the hire that he's hanging his hat on. But you feel like for Tanner, that could be, you could see him, or I could see him being like, this is the move I need to make to keep my job, and to have a chance to, basically make amends for this, or to go out and get the next guy.
Yeah, but see, there will be, right or wrong, if it goes bad, so to speak, there will 100% be a push from, power brokers, for lack of a better term, to make changes everywhere.
And power brokers are not people on the Insiders Forum, right?
No. Some of
them.
There are some.
We got some, yeah.
There are some.
There are some. So, but that's so everybody's hope is that nobody's sitting around the administration going, it's SEC title or bust, man. No, unrealistic. Unrealistic at South Carolina almost any year, and especially not this year. But like Wes was saying, evidence of progress has to be there, and there has to be evidence of progress also with some baseline of wins. And I think generally settling in the 500 or better range is a safe place to start with that. Now, do we know that for sure? No. But it's easy to see that if it's below that, it's gonna really go bad in a hurry for the administration, right?
And given that this is branched off from a conversation about the coaching staff, it's also fair to say, as we say, I don't know how much of an impact they're going to have. I don't know how much they're going to have an opportunity to impact the team. I'm going to throw out the number 70-30. College football is a player's sport.
Okay.
I've heard people say it like this: if you gave Nick Saban, the 3 of us, and 8 other people to play offense and defense, it would not go as well as if one of the 3 of us was coaching what Nick Saban has at Alabama right now, which is to say, it's a player's game. What happens this year? 70-30? Is that fair? 70% of what happens this year is up to the players, 30% coaches? Or is it closer to 60-40 or closer to 80-20?
That's a great question. I mean, 70-30 sounds pretty solid to me. Now, I think the 30 is, it starts with the coaches getting the guys ready.
Right.
Not necessarily like in-game even play calling and stuff like that, but just putting them in a position where the athleticism and the player part can take over. That these guys can go make plays. But, I mean, I think kind of to your point also, it's like there seems to be a common refrain around here of, well, there's talent. There's a lot of talent on this team. They should win more. And, I get that against certain teams where South Carolina was upset last year. But also, you're facing a lot of teams that you can say the same thing about as far as talent. And
people in Columbia, Missouri think that they have the more talented team. People in Columbia, South Carolina think they have the more talented team.
Exactly. And it's because if you really broke it down, it's probably pretty similar. So then I think does it become a coach thing at that point when you have 2 teams that are very similar talent-wise? It comes down to coaches. Comes down to matchups to where maybe there's the overall talent is similar, but this team has the advantage here, this team has the advantage there, and this advantage won out over the other one. Then it comes down to game day decisions. Then it comes down to blind, stupid luck and who did the ball bounce for, on that given day, I think.
Did Ryan Helinski bounce the ball forwards or backwards? I guess that wouldn't matter because it would have been a fumble either way, but...
And
I'm still
stuff like that.
That's not a fumble. That's not a fumble.
It's not. It's not.
I will go to my grave saying that
that's not the spirit of how that's called.
Here's the other thing: how much better, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to translate into any more wins or 1 win, 2 wins, 3. If South Carolina could just be healthy for a season, I mean, they're automatically better, right? Because you take what they have been the past 4 years, and I take that game up in Clemson in 2018. Does South Carolina win that game fully healthy? Probably still not. But they had less than zero chance to stop Clemson defensively, because Clemson really, really good, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
South Carolina was not that great, but they were gashed. I mean, decimated to the point where Brad Johnson's playing 100 snaps and special teams with the flu. So I mean, that's my point. You go back and look. Everybody. There's been a lot of talk about the running back room, and I ran some of those numbers on Gamecock Central yesterday. Man, what if they were just healthy? Like, what if they had Rico Dowdle and Tyson Williams and A.J. Turner and Mon Denson all healthy the entire season, a couple years ago? Maybe it wouldn't have made a big difference, but maybe it would have. It's like, it's those types of things. And so if by whether it's luck, whether it's how they train now, if they can stay healthier, that's going to give them a much greater chance to come out of this in a position where they can continue trying to advance the program.
But we agree that it's mostly players. What the exact percentage is. I mean, that's not crazy to say anyway, but when you have guys being interviewed for a Steelers job, taking a Rams job, John Scott's now at the co-DC at Penn State. Is that his official title?
No, I don't think he got co-DC.
Did he?
Well, he just got a big enough raise. I thought there was some associated title with it. But
he got a 2-year deal as part of that, too.
So point is, you have guys that are well-regarded that are taking or interviewing for good jobs elsewhere around the country. So you can look at last year's assembled talent on the coaching staff and say, yeah, those guys were pretty good. Like, Will Muschamp did a good job getting those guys, and now they're going on to take, other better opportunities. And Carolina still went 4-8.
Yeah, you're right.
So you're left with it being on the players. And like you said, last year a lot of it was injury. A lot of it was guys just not performing. Like, where was Shi Smith last year?
Yeah, and you can put some of that on the coaches. So I think it's really hard to measure all of it, because look at, the teams that have been in the playoff the past several seasons. What's the common theme? They're all really freaking good. Like, they've got a lot of talent.
It's the common theme. They've all been in the playoff.
Right. Yeah, they all have. Yeah. And so LSU jumps in this year, and they just destroyed everybody.
Mm-hmm.
They had approximate number 42 guys to declare for the draft, right after the game. So they obviously have a lot of talent.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they also maximize that. Joe Brady parlayed that into an OC job at 30 years old for the Carolina Panthers, and that's why the Panthers are going to win 12 straight Super Bowls. But aside from that...
Or the opposite.
Aside from that, my number went up from 9 to 12 once he was hired.
Why not 13? Baker's dozen Super Bowls.
Don't be too greedy about it. But my point is, all right, if LSU had all that talent, take the same talent, and Les Miles was still coaching and they're still running the Stone Age offense, do they win the national title? Maybe. But they definitely don't roll over everybody like they did. So that's where you sort of meet that mix, right, of you get a bunch of really good players and a transcendent competitor like Joe Burrow, and then you mix it with, really good coaching, really good motivation, and just the way that Ed Orgeron ran his team and evolved. That's when you get a championship team.
Mm-hmm.
And so now it's hard to get there. A lot of great teams never get there.
So let's do this, because, I assume the people listening aren't actually confused, because these are the diehards and these are people that know what's going on. But let's say I'm a little bit confused, and I just want to make sure I have this exactly right. There's been a lot of turnover, so let's just make sure we have this straight, and we are going to take one detour. But for the 2020-2021, hopefully, South Carolina football season, the offensive coordinator / quarterbacks coach will be Michael Bobo. Tight ends coach will be Joseph Cox. The wide receiver coach will be Brian McClendon. The running back coach will be Robert Bentley. And the offensive line coach will be Erica Wolford. I don't think it's short for Erica. Let's take a quick detour of Bobby Bentley. Why not move Bobby Bentley to tight ends coach, where he is coached, where, I don't know. I think it's probably safe to say that tight end's less important than running back. You move Joe Cox to wide receiver coach, where he has coached. Granted, I think it was just a year at Colorado State that he coached wide receivers, but he has experience doing that. And then you can move Brian McClendon to your running back coach, which was part of the consideration for the Steeler job. Like, I think it was for the wide receiver coach, but I think there was also going to be like running game coordinator implications in there, and he's done that before.
Well, I saw speculation about that, but
Unfounded?
Well, I look at what the Steelers folks were reporting, and they had McClendon and Jericho Cotchery as the two finalists, and then
Ike Hilliard gets it.
So, and
Yeah,
I think there was some blog that was speculating about the running game background, but I never heard that part. Anyway, we're completely digressing.
Well, I'm just saying the entire time, Bobby Bentley has been the running back coach before, and the running backs were terrible.
Let me push back on that a little bit. Did you read? Now, I'm not saying the running backs were great. They weren't.
They were also banged up a little bit.
A lot. The numbers, so I'll pull them. Okay.
Those computer numbers.
There is a Thomas Brown did a really good job. Okay, with that group, he had some injuries too. Tavian Feaster and Rico Dowdle both got hurt again this year, and he did a really good job recruiting. Super recruiter. South Carolina also has not recruited an elite running back yet before Marshawn Lloyd. Rico Dowdle was really good. He got invited to the Senior Bowl, right? Or was it the East-West game? Whatever it was. He got invited to a postseason All-Star game. He's going to have at least a chance to play professionally. He just wasn't healthy. So on the running backs thing, if you go and actually pull the numbers, there's not a ginormous difference in the production from year to year. And you also got to factor in, okay, Rico as a freshman versus Rico as a senior. Presumably he'd be better as a senior if I was coaching him.
Yeah. Although his freshman year was his second best year it was like senior 1, freshman 2, and then junior and sophomore year tied for third.
Right. So what are the reasonings behind that? I mean, maybe
injuries mostly.
Injuries
in his
mostly.
Case, yeah.
But if you just break out now numbers, there's all sorts of things. If you're just looking at stats, how was the offensive line? How was the play calling? How was it? All these different things. But I mean, now the yards per carry average this season were the best. It's 5.88 yards a carry.
Just for the running backs.
Just for the running backs. It's running backs only.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, that's the top 3 backs. So that's Feaster, Dowdle, and Denson. 3 seniors.
Let's not factoring in Kevin Harris's 75 yards a carry.
Right. Yeah. Something he had 8.5 on average.
Yeah.
So Feaster was at 5.4. He was a senior who transferred in. Rico was at 4.7 on average. And that was as a freshman he was 5.7. As a sophomore he was 3.8, and then as a junior he was 5.3. So, I mean, my point is there's
how much of that is Kurt Roper and
right. I mean, there's all these different things. So there's all these perceptions that Bobby Bentley was absolutely terrible. Well, the offense has not been good at all, and so it wasn't good last year. I mean, they couldn't run the ball against Appalachian State last year.
Mm-hmm.
Running game didn't look very good then. I thought Thomas Brown did a super job. Okay, I'm on record with that, and clearly the Rams thought so. But I just think the perception of there being this just absolute chasm. I don't know. Am I wrong on that? I mean,
well, and I know we got my computers did. I know we got some people that asked that exact question. If we want to,
I saw one of those on the Insiders Forum for the mailbag
while we're at it.
That was Michael,
because I do want to hit the mailbag, but I believe there are 2 questions or maybe even 3 that were very similar.
Yeah, USC Beckham. I'd like to hear your thoughts on BMAC coaching wide receiver instead of running back.
And then there was one other that was very similar.
J.H. Johnson talking about reordering the staff.
Yeah. So
yeah,
part of me thinks that there was already so much change on the staff in general that maybe Muschamp did not want to completely change his, literally the entire staff, save Eric Wolford on offense, and have just nobody back, in their same spot, basically. And I think that the other part that goes into this is that Mike Bobo is very, very involved, I'm sure, in the offensive decisions. And one thing I put in my Carolina Confidential is that Mike Bobo is also very high on Brian McClendon. And I think there was this perception that the Carolina coaches, Bobo, Muschamp, etc., wanted McClendon to leave, which is just simply not the case. If Mike Bobo would have gotten a job elsewhere, then there's a pretty good chance, and I'm not just making this up, like there's a very good chance that one of his first calls would have been to Brian McClendon to try to bring him on staff wherever he might go. He just happened to already be at the same place. So Mike Bobo is high on McClendon's ability. I assume he wants him as his receivers coach, and I think it goes that far. Joe Cox has 1 year of experience coaching wide receivers, and Joe Cox, from everything I've heard, is going to be an outstanding addition to this program. He connects well with the guys. He's going to be a really good recruiter, I think. I think he helps South Carolina and Charlotte. The players love him so far. There's a lot of reasons why Joe Cox was added to this staff. I believe putting him as SEC wide receivers coach after just 1 year of being a receivers coach would have been quite a risk. And I think this is sort of your least risky way to go about doing it, I believe. Now, does McClendon need to see results from the wide receivers this year? Is there to be a lot of development? Absolutely. No doubt at all. But I think the fan base at times gets caught up in Brian McClendon, the play caller, versus Brian McClendon, the receivers coach, and when he's allowed to focus just on wide receivers and just at that position. I think you see a lot of times when a guy has to focus on being a coordinator, it falls off as far as some other responsibilities within his job. Mm-hmm. He needs to have a really good 2021 recruiting class. He needs to develop the young guys that are on campus. But now his entire focus is on that as opposed to the offensive side. I've always thought it's a little bit awkward when a wide receivers coach is also your play caller. I think it just works better when a quarterback's coach is your offensive coordinator and your play caller. So I get everyone sort of being against this. I understand, I get it. But there's also a reason why it's been left this way. And now it's just about seeing if it works, I think. I mean, yes, you can make the case for that, for doing it by switching everybody around. But now you're truly talking about an offense that has every single spot new except for offensive line coach.
I think that's a very reasonable way to approach that. Thank you, S.
Y'all want to hit another question? How about SC Bobo 85? Any under-the-radar guys in state for 2021 that we should be watching? Timely question. We had a little bit in the Insider Report this morning about some in-state guys. So there's 5 offers out right now in state. It's Robbie Oots from Rock Hill, the tight end, and a couple of D linemen, Justice Boone from Sumter, Tyrion Ingram Dawkins from Gaffney. There's another D-line offer out to Wagner Sally's Elijah Davis. But he's a guy, from what I'm hearing, is more than likely going to be a placement for somebody at the next level, but a guy who's definitely got some ability. And then Chance Black from Dorman was verbally offered last season. He's a guy that plays running back, could project as a receiver. And at this point, I think he's someone they're going to just sort of continue watching. I think it's more likely he goes out of state now. But some more, Omega Blake is not under the radar. He's got several offers, including Tennessee. He's picked up some other ones along the way. But I think that he's someone to watch. South Carolina's continued to scout him. J.J. Jones, from Myrtle Beach, is a guy that staff's continuing to watch. Amari Huggins-Bruce from Dillon, again, not an under-the-radar guy, but just a guy without an offer that they're continuing to watch. Any other ones that come up off the top of your head? Thornton Gentry from Chapin, maybe. But the numbers are going to be really low probably in this offensive line class. So, that's something to consider.
I think the two most interesting guys to watch there for me is Omega Blake and J.J. Jones at wide receiver. Yeah. And, to a lesser extent, Amari Huggins-Bruce there at Dillon. As far as you have 3 guys in state, that – and I'll throw my guy Nahshon Hezekiah at Orangeburg Wilkinson there, who's way under the radar, but I think has a huge upside. His recruitment's going to take off at some point, whether it's at South Carolina or more like a group of 5, type level. The question for South Carolina is, are these guys difference makers at the SEC level? We know that all of them are really, really good wide receivers at at the high school level. And I think all of them would be solid wide receivers at the college level. There's a lot to like about every guy we just mentioned. The thing for South Carolina is going to be, and this goes back to Brian McClendon as a recruiter, as an evaluator. Question is going to be picking the correct ones to offer, because I think anybody on that list, if they offered, they could land them. You're not going to take all 4, in-state wide receivers. I don't think. I think it's going to be about picking the right one and then having to live with that decision. So to me, that's maybe one of the more intriguing storylines in-state, because it is a down year. There's not as much upper-level elite talent in the state of South Carolina as there has been traditionally. But for this year, South Carolina is going to have to make some hard decisions on who they go in state.
You want to get this one from Washington Cock, and we can transition this into a little bit of a spring question.
Okay.
He wants to know a breakout player on offense and defense, an impactful newcomer on offense and on defense, and an MVP on offense and defense. We can leave the MVP for maybe like the end of spring as we look forward to the season a little bit, but if we want to project a breakout player on offense and on defense and an impact new player on offense and on defense for the spring, since we're just a week away from that.
Go ahead, Chris.
Offensive breakout player.
Are we just talking about now, like spring?
Yeah.
Or
yeah,
just
let's
once
do it.
we get to the season?
Yeah, let's do a spring version, because I'm sure we'll revisit something like this in a future mailbag as we get closer to the season.
I got my offensive guy.
Okay.
Wait, I think I have an offensive guy. Should we all say it at the same time? Because I feel like we might all be thinking the same person.
I mean, if you want to.
Yeah.
Colin always has trouble with this, so it's 3, 2, 1, and then go. But I'm not going to say go. It's just 3, 2, 1, boom. Yeah,
I'll do this a lot.
We do this a lot.
I can see that,
and we always have to go over it.
Okay.
3, 2, 1.
Marshawn Lloyd.
Okay, cool. So would he be maybe the most impactful new player though?
Well, my
or is he going to be both?
So my question was: are we cheating as a breakout player, a guy that's been on the roster before?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Maybe.
I mean, I feel like that's more the definition of a breakout guy.
All right, so not Marshawn Lloyd. I would pick. You know what? I'm gonna pick Josh Vann.
That was Wes's pick for last year.
Yeah, didn't.
And then he led the SEC in drops.
Well,
All right.
Piling on.
Whoops. All right, you can go with Josh Vann. You got one, Wes?
Yeah.
Come back to me on that.
I really thought you were going to go Xavier, just because he had so much upside and the offense was such a mess last year, and he started to play more and had that one really bad drop against Texas A&M, but did enough to get onto the field towards the end of the season. It feels like he could take a leap, because that is, just wide open for wide receiver number 1, even with Shy there.
Yeah. Come back to me on that.
Okay. All right, what about a breakout player on defense?
Breakout player on defense.
I'm going to say that Zach Pickens.
That's kind of what I was thinking. We should have done 3-2-1 for this one.
Yeah, and I was the thing is, I was sort of going back and forth between Zach Pickens and Rick Sandage, because I think both are going to take that next step forward, and probably I feel like there's a little bit of residual effect when a guy we have a guy at your position that is Mr. Everything and goes to the NFL, and those guys are super talented, and they're seeing Kinlaw go to the NFL. I almost sometimes feel like there's a little bit of a residual impact where these guys are like, if I take my game to the next level, that's there for me.
Yeah.
And both those guys have the baseline talent to be able to do that. So I think I could have said either one of those guys. I went Pickens just because I think a lot of the fan base sort of forgot about him a little bit last year.
Well, I think that's a good one, because I feel like that perfectly fits the mold of the breakout player question, because it's who is someone that's going to get a lot more workload this year? And Pickens played in 8 games, I think, last year, or 9, and he played 15-ish snaps a game. He's going to play in all 12 or 13 games this year, and he'll probably play, I would say, no fewer than 35 or 40 snaps a game. Probably sounds about right. So that's a guy that it's an easy uptick in production, uptick in impact, and Sandage too. But my first thought was Pickens as well. You got one, Chris?
I was going back and forth. I would argue Ernest Jones has already broken out from last year. And
did he finish the season leading the team in tackles?
Yes, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I don't feel great about this one because I'm not sure about the playing time. Jamar Brown.
Oh yeah,
would be
that's
one.
a good one.
But I'm curious about the breakdown in and who's going to play where. Obviously, Ernest Jones is going to be your Mike, and I would think that Sherrod Green is probably the front runner at the will position.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Jamar is probably your starter at Sam when they're in.
At Sam, right. So how much is he actually going to play? I don't know. But, the staff loved him during recruiting, and he impressed them last year. And he didn't play a ton, but he didn't keep his red shirt. So he played some last year. And had a cool,
like, flying forced fumble kick.
Yeah,
one
exactly.
Of the game. What game was that? Vanderbilt?
Kentucky.
It was Kentucky. Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, he's a really athletic guy. He's put on some weight. He can really run. He's got a nose for the ball. He can cover. So I'd probably pick him.
Yeah, was it Coleman Hutzler or Mike Peterson, someone saying in the offseason last year that, if he could look like anybody on the team with his shirt off, it was Jamar Brown?
That's
something
exactly
like that.
him.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Before we move on to the impactful new players, did you come up with a breakout offensive player, or should we come back to you?
I'm going to say Ja'Kai Moore.
Oh, that's a good one.
Cool.
I think...
smart pick. Smart guys pick offensive linemen.
Well, and I think Sedarius Hutcherson, best case scenario, slides back to guard. And then I think Dylan Wonnum is a definite starter at one tackle spot. So then there's really an opportunity for Ja'Kai Moore or Jalen Nichols to step in and be a guy, as a starter. And I went Ja'Kai. I mean, you could see either one, but I'd say Ja'Kai. I think he's an athletic guy. Really liked him out of high school. Big chance for him. So, and I figure people just don't think about offensive linemen a lot. So if you're talking about a true breakout player, I think he's got a chance.
That's what I was going to say. If you would pick somebody at center for a candidate, then you would be. Unless
just by virtue of like winning the starting job,
right? Unless you're taking move, and that's going to be an interesting one. I mean, they moved Donnell Stanley over after the first game to stabilize that position. So Vincent Murphy, I mean that's a guy potentially to watch. So be a little bit of a battle there, and
got some.
I think Eric
wide
Douglas could get reps at center again.
Hank Manos obviously
will be in there. So. Yeah.
Still got to put on some more weight because he wasn't even 300. I don't think in that North Carolina game he was still, and obviously he had to, like his weight journey is fascinating. It was fun talking to him about it a little bit during media day last year because he's just had to put on so much since losing a ton of it. But I mean he's got to be at least like 310, 315. You think, and his body can hold it. Like he was like a slim 295 up in Charlotte last year.
If Jordan Rhodes is completely ready to be the guy at guard as he was for several games last year, can Javon Gwynn possibly play some center?
I'd be curious. He's got the body type. He's sort of the incumbent at right guard, but
But Rhodes played a lot last year, and if you're moving, if Hutcherson plays guard,
right? Because Rhodes mostly played on the left last year, right?
Yeah. It was Rhodes on the left, Gwynn on the right.
Okay, yeah, and Donnell at center.
Yeah.
So
there's some intriguing, there's some talent up front, and Dylan Wonnum will miss the spring, but he'll be good for the season.
Yeah. Now, unfortunately, I feel like in the spring, both of the lines are probably the positions that you learn the least about. You get the least clarity. So I don't know if in a couple weeks we'll be having any more productive conversations about it. But come summer and come preseason camp, there are going to be a lot of really interesting battles between a lot of guys that have some experience that are. I mean, it's like. It's 7 guys coming back that have some experience playing SEC football on the offensive line, and obviously only 5 starting roles. Or, 8 if you want to throw Manis in there.
I think we'll need to see, quarterback decision-making. Then we'll need to see what can some guys do with the ball in their hands.
Right.
So we'll talk about that on offense.
And, how much does Bobo turn this into an I-form, fullback, H-back, a lot of 12, maybe sometimes 22 personnel? Because that's going to change, too, because there are guys on this offensive line. I think we saw Jordan Rhodes was a gifted run blocker, but found himself in, less than optimal positions a lot of times in pass protection. So if you have a couple guys that can get after it, run blocking, and you're going to run it 65% of the time, maybe that's a little better suited than if you want to drop back and try to throw it around the yard like 45 times a game. So a lot of interesting things to consider there. Most impactful new player in the spring, Marshawn Lloyd. That's an easy one. Most impactful new player on defense for the spring.
So we're changing it from this coming season to spring, right?
Yeah,
okay.
Just to have a little more
but it could be both.
Timely conversation. Yeah, sure. Because Kaba is going to miss the spring?
Yeah.
That would have been my pick.
most impactful new player on defense. Trying to run through the guys.
Yeah, who all even...
Jordan Birch won't be on campus.
Nor
you don't have a bunch of defense. Dominic Hill is in.
Like a lot of the defensive starters are kind of solidified.
Yeah, I mean, you could pick Kaba if he was.
I mean, you know who your linebackers are. You know who most of your line is. You know who your secondary is. I mean, is anybody going to come in and take that other safety position next to Roderick?
Let's go ahead and push it to the season for this one,
sure.
just because there's not really options for the spring. And then we'll all say Mo Kaba, and then we'll all say who's your second highest impact guy, and then I'll say Jordan Birch.
Huntley.
Yeah, I would go with yours. Yeah, with Kaba and Birch in some order. Yeah, that's what I would go with.
There you go. All right, cool. Well, thanks for the question, Washington Cock. We'll get to, I guess, MVPs either on the other side of the spring or sometime in the summer. We have plenty of time to get through that.
Many hours of podcast to fill.
Many hours. It'll be great. And like I said, spring starts a week from today. Another piece of spring news that I first saw from Wes, so thank you for that, Wes. You wrote about this on Gamecock Central yesterday, and Chris, you alluded to it a little bit earlier in the podcast. For those of you that haven't seen, DeCarrion Joyner is going to be working exclusively at spring, so he was another option for breakout player. If he starts working exclusively at receiver, could he be someone that... What?
Did you catch that?
What?
You said it working exclusively at spring?
I didn't catch it at all. That was like one of those things where you reorder the words.
Working. I have, I guess, mental dyslexia or something.
Working
exclusively at receiver this spring. There we go. So another candidate for breakout, again, for the same reason I picked Xavier Legette, because that is absolutely wide open. Joyner, a guy that flashes his athleticism. Everybody knows what he can do when he has the ball in his hands. My first thought with this, though, is moving DeCarrion Joyner from quarterback to wide receiver, to me, says he probably wasn't going to be the backup again this year, which says Colin Hill or Luke Doty, which one of those guys is the coaching staff looking at saying that's probably the number 2 quarterback come August 31st?
Ooh.
Well, I think
twist on the answer, though.
I think Colin Hill is going to push for the number 1 spot.
Ryan Helinski backup.
No,
really?
I'm not saying that. I just think he's going to push that position.
I tweeted
it. I think that's why he's there. I don't think he's there just to say, hey, I'm going to be the backup.
Hold the clipboard.
I think he's going to be there to push Ryan Helinski for the number 1 job. Now,
so that has a lot more to do with Hill. I keep wanting to say Colin Taylor, obviously, because he's our favorite. But this has more to do with Colin Hill than Luke Doty.
Yeah, well, I think all the above. But I think, and Luke has... Everything I've heard about Luke since he got here has been incredibly positive. Luke, Marshawn Lloyd, and Mo Kaba, even though Kaba has been limited coming back from the knee, are probably the 3 most impressive newcomers just as far as a combination of how they carry themselves, how they work, their approach, their professionalism, plus with Luke and Marshawn, what they've done in the workout program, whether it's running, lifting, all that stuff. But I think you look, and Colin Hill, we won't really know much about him this spring either because he's not going to be able to do much this
Recovering
spring.
from his 3rd ACL tear.
Yes, but I think ideally you bring Luke along at his own pace.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we talked about, getting DeCarrion Joyner involved at quarterback in particular packages. Is there something you look at with Luke Doty in that position this year as well? I think ideally, though, you play Luke in 4 games, let him redshirt, be smart about how you handle that position, and then you let Ryan Helinski and Colin Hill sort of fight it out for the number 1 spot, and then obviously whoever wins it there is the other guy's the backup. But I think Colin Hill is not just here just to say, hey, I'm going to be the backup. He's here to push Ryan Helinski for a number 1 spot, and ultimately though that's what you want. You want competition at that position. But Colin Hill knows the offense. He's a big-armed kid. He can make all the throws just to throw a bunch of cliches at you. But, I wish Colin Hill was available for the spring because I think that'd be fun to sort of get out there and see the comparison, of the 2 guys, Ryan Helinski in his 2nd year versus Colin Hill is sort of a little bit more of a veteran.
Is he a game manager?
I hate that word.
But he's got
doing all
talent.
the cliches, so I thought
he's got
I'd
arm
throw it
talent.
out.
Arm talent is one of the best.
So DeCarrion Joyner was in a position where he was going to be battling Luke Doty for the 3rd string quarterback.
I mean, maybe.
He's just a combination of things that like it just made more sense to play receiver because he's going to play a lot more theoretically.
And this is his first opportunity to actually play wide receiver, not play wide receiver / quarterback /
while he's hurt,
going back and forth. Plus, hey, guess what? We're at Georgia. We need you to go play quarterback. You know,
you can't walk, but do your best.
Yeah.
Like I mean, last year was so, and then he got a hamstring at the end.
The
injury.
concussion against A&M.
But then
they
he
kept
had
him out of the last 2 games.
Okay, yeah, but he had a hamstring along the way, I think, or
where he missed, I guess, the Kentucky game.
There are multiple injuries along the way that held him back. So I think this is good for him. He'll get a bunch of reps, clearly this spring. So we'll see where it goes.
Got another question or two. Sir Spur 12, is it 12-2-16 or 122-16? Regardless, what area of the offense will show the most improvement in the 2020 season?
I
all
would
of
say,
it.
you better hope all of them. The running game was the most consistent part of the offense last year. So I think it's probably fair to expect. Oh gosh, the wide receivers were so bad they can't get worse. So
but
that seems.
I don't feel like the running game was consistent at all last year. I felt like there was
it tailed off towards the end.
There was like 4 games in the middle where they were amazing.
They were really good for the first 8 weeks of the season.
They were solid, then they were amazing, and then there was nothing, which I've never seen a drop.
Yeah, it was
to
bizarre.
Go for App State.
Yeah, literally could not run it.
Yeah,
but at what point was the quarterback play or the wide receiver play amazing? And I guess we can say the offensive line was, fairly consistent. Like they run blocked pretty well, except for towards the end, which again is just just everything fell off a cliff. It was bizarre. And pass protection was kind of an issue sometimes, but a lot of times they give up 0 sacks. If they didn't give up 0, they give up 3, so that's not good.
Your favorite stat of the year?
I know they ruined it though. They ruined it either against A&M or Clemson, when they only gave up 2.
All right, I think I have my answer. I think quarterback play.
That's sort of what I was thinking.
Yeah,
you get
and
another
that'll
year
work hand in
Helinski.
hand.
Right.
Receivers and quarterback hand in hand.
Well, you hope, unless the receivers are dropping everything.
Right, or they're not getting open. That
was an
tends
issue last
to
year.
make it difficult on a quarterback. But yeah, that's sort of where my head was at, quarterback play.
Another year of Helinski. Can Colin Hill be a Tavian Feaster to Ryan Helinski's Rico Dowdle? We saw how much that helped to have a veteran guy transfer in and push him. Wes, you were talking about the competitive depth. I mean, how much of a difference does that make? Obviously, it's going to be different because Helinski and Hill aren't going to be splitting snaps like Dowdle and Feaster were, but just like in practice and camp.
If Steve Spurrier was the coach, there would be a possibility.
That's true. That's true. So that's kind of where I'm leaning as well.
Well, and the other thing, last year was so. I mean, I just think about it sometimes. Wild year, wild off season. I mean, the thing was absolutely crazy, but just how the quarterback situation evolved last year. It was Jake Bentley. He did not play well in game 1. Then he got hurt. Then it was Ryan Helinski. He came out, played extremely well his first 2 starts. Then he got hurt. Then he didn't play well. First road start at Missouri went very, very poorly. Then he was hurt. Then it was Joyner a little bit. He was hurt. And so I think just having a healthy.
That's why you need 4 great quarterbacks on your roster at all times. It's the only answer.
So if you've got, again, I go back to health. I mean, you go back. Can the running back room be healthy? Because they lose 3 seniors there, who some of them played really well at times when healthy. I mean, when healthy, Rico Dowdle and Tavian Feaster were good.
Yeah,
they were good running backs.
That was like the best running back
average.
tandem in the SEC for the first 6 or 7 weeks of the season.
It wasn't even they were average; they were good, pretty good. And so. And even AJ, you put AJ Turner in that mix. He's been good at times and couldn't. So I think that's
sad
the
he didn't get to play it all last year. AJ, I really liked AJ.
That was. I feel really poorly for him.
I do too. It was
he didn't deserve.
He was dealing with
to
some
go out
injury,
like
I think, at times last year, maybe a concussion or something. But it was mostly special teams for him. All that talk about him moving into nickel, and they didn't need it because Jamie Robinson was fantastic. But it was a shame. He had a 75-yard touchdown run for Carolina once upon a
Texas
time.
A&M. Yep. We got one more. Do we want to hit this one?
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but let's
all
do
right. I think this is the last one. Go ahead.
SH Gamecock 2001.
Gamecock.
Let's see. Rank a college program's positional coaching tree when combining these two components.
Oh, yeah, this was so confusing. It's like an SAT question.
I think I've got it figured out. The need and importance for development, the need to recruit. So basically, you're as an overall coach, what are the most important, coaching positions as far as your assistant coaches on staff? Easy answer is ideally you'd be like pretty good at all of them. Let's see. I would say OC and DC tied most important positions, obviously. I mean, can you separate those? If you have an offensive
Defense wins
minded
championships, Wes.
no, if you have an offensive minded head coach and is very, very tied in, then probably defense coordinator is more important. If you have for South Carolina, I would say obviously head coach most important. OC probably second most important because we all know Will Muschamp's going to make sure the defense is right if possible. So then you go defense coordinator. I would say defensive line next. I would say,
especially in the SEC.
I would say offensive line. After that, I would say
either running backs or cornerbacks after that.
No, see, I've got running backs way down.
Really?
In my list.
But all you need is one guy, and he can totally carry you. I'm trying to think. So let's think about it like this. How do you build a successful team? If we were just going to do our own draft or build our own dynasty in NCAA football 2021, you start with...
God, I hope that happens.
Yeah, you start with an elite quarterback, right? And then what do you need to do next? Okay, well, you need to disrupt the other team's quarterback. So good pass rusher, defensive line. So this is how I'm like organizing these priorities in my head. And then what do you need to do? Well, you need to protect your own quarterback. So that's your offensive line. That's your left tackle. And then what do you need? You need a lockdown corner to take care of whoever the best player is on the other team. And then you probably need a bell cow back and then an elite perimeter playmaker and then some good safeties and then good linebackers and then a good tight end. That's how I would organize those position groups.
Yeah, from a player perspective. But I think a running back coach as far as development and stuff, like...
But he's also talking about recruiting and development.
I know.
So you gotta...
I know, but I just... You can't... There's no way to me that running back coach is more important than OC/quarterbacks, more important than defense coordinator, more important than offensive line coach, or more important than defensive line coach. Now, after that, maybe I feel like you could start to make a case against it. I would say tight ends, he's got tight ends last. Tight ends probably last. In today's college football, linebackers probably near the bottom as well. Linebackers just don't matter as much as they once did because it's more about having a great defensive line and having guys on the edge. Now, he's got cornerbacks and safeties together, if you're talking secondary coach, I guess. Now, if they were split, cornerbacks way more important than safeties.
Although Carolina saw firsthand what happens when you have safeties not where they're supposed to be.
Yeah, true. I mean, all this stuff works hand in hand. It's not... No coach is not important. They're all important. So all right. So who do y'all have after OC, DC, O-line, or D-line, O-line?
I would say corner, running back, wide receiver, safety, linebacker, tight end.
I think that's fair.
I was struggling about whether to put running back or wide receiver first if you're factoring in sort of the recruiting aspect of it. I would still go wide receiver.
I actually probably would too. Maybe do a wide receiver then running back.
Yeah, because I just feel like...
But you can get the ball in a great running back's hands 25 times a game more easily than you can get it in a great wide receiver's hands.
But I'm thinking about how many receivers that you recruit. Like 3 of them on the field at once. Can you rotate them? One of them can be your returner on kicks or punts. And I think a lot about bailout players. That's a huge, when you look at LSU or Clemson, Ohio State, and you look at if those teams happen to get in 3rd and 12, back shoulder to this guy or throw him a deep ball and he goes and makes a play for you.
Is Debo the best bailout player ever? I don't think he's the best wide receiver. I mean, at Carolina. I don't think he's the best wide receiver ever at Carolina, but is he the best bailout player at Carolina?
Alshon Jeffrey.
Alshon.
Probably. Okay. Yeah. But Debo is up there for sure. He's probably second Sidney Rice is pretty good too.
Well, there's been some
there's been a lot of them.
dudes.
But I go back to that because if you get in those third and long situations and then you face a fierce pass rush or whatever, and all the positions are important. But that's why I'd go a little bit higher. I'd go wide receiver, running back, and then
I think
end last. Yeah,
I think wide receiver coach has to be able to develop and recruit, whereas running back you just sort of development's important. Don't get me wrong, but the just elite recruiting part is the biggest factor.
Something else to consider: we can answer this and get full credit. If we don't answer this, or if we answer it and we get it wrong, we get 0 points. But if we don't answer it, we still get a quarter of the point.
Okay.
Did y'all not take the SAT?
Oh, well.
It's been
a long
time ago.
A long time ago.
Not that long.
Yes.
It's a while.
15 years?
All right.
16 years? That's not that long.
1075 has a healthy debate on the proposed transfer rule changes. It's from Beckham. What are your thoughts on the proposed transfer rules, which would, I believe, allow sort of any player of any sport to transfer once without penalty?
Not any sport. Football, men's and women's basketball, baseball, and hockey.
Oh. So why wouldn't they allow...
I don't know. That's just the rule.
Do they already have to sit? Like volleyball transfer? Or can they already transfer without penalty?
That's a great question. I have no idea.
Because that would make...
I don't know much about volleyball.
What?
Who knows, man?
All right, so there's my first issue. If we're going to let everybody transfer in our marketable big sports, then why can't you transfer in the other? Anyway, I'm preaching to the choir, I guess. But I think it was headed this way anyway. If we're going to make people get, and by people I mean student athletes, get lawyers and have to come up with these just made up reasons why they should be allowed to play anyway, let's just do away with the whole charade and say you got one transfer, deal with it.
Yeah, all it does is make it impossible for the NCAA to screw this up, like in a case of Luke Ford, who just wanted to transfer back to Illinois to be near his sick grandfather, who I think just passed away today or yesterday.
Yeah.
As we're recording this Wednesday morning, so it was either Tuesday or Wednesday that his grandfather passed away, which is really unfortunate.
And how did that get denied? But
exactly. So all it does is keep the NCAA from screwing this up, which they continually do. It's like, oh, you stubbed your toe on the curb outside of the lecture hall? Well, you're allowed to transfer. Oh, your grandfather's sick and dying and you want him to see you play football now?
Right. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, so a lot of people's concerns are, well, it's just going to be open season. It's going to be...
It already is.
Free agency, and to some
degree
it is.
3 of the 4 Heisman finalists were transfer quarterbacks. 3 of the 4...
Right. So
it already happens.
If a guy wants to leave, there are some, will there be more rash decisions now, or will there be more players transfer? Yes. But I think people also are looking at, now we actually have some data from the first step was a transfer portal. Okay, we'll make it a little bit easier. Now schools can contact you. How many guys, even guys who were D1 scholarship guys with 20 offers coming out of high school, have gone in that thing and ended up going, down a level? We've heard of guys going in and, oh, man, they're going to go to a bigger school or a better situation, and then they end up somewhere smaller, which there's nothing wrong with that. But we're just seeing that when you say you're transferring, you're not automatically, like, I don't know if people are just going to be it's not going to be like trading guys back and forth. I don't know if there's anything to actually support that. Will it be easier? Yeah. Will there be more transfers? Probably. But I don't even know, like, is that such a bad thing?
Will there be that many more, you think?
I don't know. I don't know if it...
I feel like it will be marginal.
I feel like people think that it's going to be, holy cow, it's going to be awful, like half the team's going to transfer after the season. I just don't...
Well, here's the thing. If you want to transfer, you're going to transfer. And if you don't want to transfer, just having the option to transfer isn't going to make you want to transfer, I don't think.
Yeah, and, there may be more transfers early on, but then I think guys as a whole will be like, wow, maybe the grass isn't always greener on the other side. And then I think it will sort of correct itself over time because kids will see, oh, well, leaving didn't necessarily improve that guy's situation anyway. And you know what? Here's something I read. I don't know where I saw this, but it makes sense, and it was something I didn't think about before. the system as it is currently designed, they used to not have so many different appeals for waivers as they do now. The system was not built for the number of appeals that they have to actually physically, logistically go through at all given times. So you almost have to either say you can't you can't get a waiver, or everybody can transfer, because there's just not the manpower to go through all these different cases. And then who's the guy for Tennessee basketball? I was listening on the radio. I believe it's Tennessee.
The Turkish guy?
Well, maybe Derek Scott was talking about how he was appealing to be eligible immediately, and he got denied. Then he got denied, and then they did a third and final appeal, and it got accepted, and then he could play. And it's like, how?
Same facts, probably.
Like what
cool. Wait, was that
changed?
Vescovi?
I think that was him.
Santiago Vescovi?
Yeah, I
don't
think
know.
so.
But what changed? You know,
Well, it's like Nick Muse last year, like with his waiver. Like, that's a different situation, a little bit, well, not really. No, he's just transferring.
They let him know, 25 minutes before kickoff or something?
It's like,
Well, no, he missed.
He missed the North Carolina game, and then even still, it was like up in the air for a while.
Yeah,
but
it's like nothing changed. You had all the facts. You can't be that undermanned to where you literally just didn't get to review it. And if you are, hire one more person because you make millions of dollars. So
So I don't know.
All right. I think that's all the questions.
I think we got to wrap now.
Let's give shout outs though to people: Johnny Henderson, Beckham, USC Light, and
Gamecock.
Michael Johnson, not sure which one, for listening on YouTube as well, because that's something we want to hopefully do a little bit more, is streaming them.
Thanks for tuning into that, if y'all did. And I don't know, it was probably a little bit underwhelming seeing the behind the scenes, just because I feel like people expect it to be way different than it is, but we actually do it pretty cleanly, like mostly in one take. Yeah, just kind of like sit here and talk. We're not like shooting hoops or anything like DP, but I don't know. Hope y'all thought that was cool, because we are going to do that more. So
yeah, and we may have a little bit cooler studio format in the future, hopefully. So
there you go. So keep tuning in. Thanks for listening to the live stream. Thanks for listening to this podcast. Don't forget to rate, review, subscribe to this podcast, which is free, and also subscribe to GamecockCentral.com. Spring is
not free.
Next week. That's not free, but it's like it might as well be, because it's such a good value. I mean, you only have to. It's $99.95 for a whole year, and you're not going to get this stuff anywhere else. And spring is next week, which is crazy. It seems really early this year, but we'll obviously be back to talk a little bit more about spring as spring practice progresses, and you'll get way more extensive updates, and y'all can talk on the Insiders Forum. And apparently there's some people in there that are really important in the world of South Carolina athletics. So, have fun sleuthing around, figuring out how those people are, and get in touch with them. But yeah, subscribe to GamecockCentral.com. Subscribe to this podcast. Also rate it and review it. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back next week.